Beloved by Toni Morrison. In 1873, at house number 124 on the outskirts of Cincinnati, lived Setha, a former slave, and her daughter Denver. Setha is a young woman, a mother, a former slave, strong, proud, loving, with a scarred back and a cook. Denver is a young girl, Setha's daughter, shy, stubborn, level-headed, lonely, and caring. Their house was haunted by the malevolent spirit of a small child. Because of the ghost's antics, Setha's sons, Howard and Bugler, had fled the house years ago. And her mother-in-law, Baby Suggs, had died. Baby Suggs is an elderly woman, Setha's mother-in-law, a former slave, a preacher, wise, generous, loving, and with a bad foot. Setha and Denver were used to the presence of the spirit, which would sometimes be quiet for months, and then manifest its fury by moving furniture and causing chaos. One day, 18 years after Setha escaped from slavery, Paul D., one of the slaves from Sweet Home Plantation in Kentucky, where Setha once lived, appeared on their doorstep. Paul D. is a middle-aged man, a former slave, strong, courageous, with deep inner turmoil, and a wanderer. He was the last of the Sweet Home men she had seen. His appearance stirred up painful memories of the past that Setha had tried to forget. She invited him into the house, and he immediately felt the presence of something supernatural. Setha explained that it was the spirit of her deceased daughter. At 124, malice throbbed, the malice and rage of a child. The women living in the house knew it, and the children knew it. For a long time, all of them, each in their own way, had put up with the attacks of this malice. Baby Suggs believed that there was no point in moving, as grief haunted black people everywhere. She said, "There ain't a house in this country ain't packed to rafters with some dead Negro's grief. We lucky to have us a baby ghost to deal with. What if it was my husband come back?" Paul D. and Setha indulged in memories of Sweet Home. It was a farm where the owners, the Garners, treated the slaves in a special way, allowing them to feel like men. There lived 6 male slaves: Paul D., Paul A., Paul F., Sixo, Hallie, and Setha herself. Hallie is a young man, Setha's husband, Baby Suggs' son, a former slave, hard-working, caring, and has disappeared. Sixo is a young man, a former slave, wild, philosophical, laughing, with a bright red tongue. Setha chose Hallie, Baby Suggs' son, as her husband. He had worked on weekends for 5 years to buy his mother's freedom. After Mr. Garner's death, everything changed. His widow, Mrs. Garner, became ill, and her brother-in-law, a schoolteacher, came to manage the farm and established cruel rules. Mrs. Garner is a white woman, the owner of Sweet Home Plantation, initially kind, but weakened and ill. Setha told Paul D. how the schoolteacher's nephews stole her milk, and then the schoolteacher ordered her to be whipped, leaving scars on her back in the shape of a tree. Paul D., angered by the story and the presence of the ghost that was terrorizing the women, furiously attacked the ghost, smashing furniture, and drove it out of the house. That night, he and Setha became close for the first time. He tenderly explored the scars on her back, and she felt safe for the first time in many years. Denver, Setha's daughter, grew up in complete isolation. Other children avoided her because of her mother's history and the ghost in the house. Her only refuge was the Emerald Closet, a gazebo made of boxwood bushes behind the house. She envied her mother for Paul D. and longed for the banished ghost who was her only friend. Denver often remembered the story of her birth, which Setha had told her. While pregnant, Setha escaped from Sweet Home. Exhausted, with swollen feet, she collapsed in the forest. There, she was found by a young white girl named Amy Denver, who was herself a runaway servant and dreamed of buying velvet in Boston. Amy is a young white girl, ragged, unkempt, with gnarled hands, dreaming of velvet, kind and strong. Setha was Rhea. Die to die, but Amy showed compassion. She said, "I was like a snake, didn't feel nothing except my own jaws and hunger. But it wasn't no boy. It was a white girl, raggedy as hell, uncombed." Amy helped Setha reach the abandoned shed, rubbed her swollen feet, and treated the wounds on her back, calling the scars a cherry tree. When Setha went into labor, Amy helped her deliver a baby girl in a leaky boat on the banks of the Ohio River. Before leaving, Amy asked her to name the child after her, so Setha, crossing the river with the help of an old Negro named Stamp, reached baby Suggs' house with newborn Denver in her arms. Paul D., seeing the tension in the house due to Denver's jealousy, suggested that they all go to the carnival together. This day became a rare moment of happiness and unity with the community for them. For the first time in many years, neighbors greeted Setha and Denver with welcoming smiles. On the way back, their shadows on the road held hands, which Setha took as a good sign. However, approaching the house, they saw a young woman in a black dress on the stump. She was weak, suffering from thirst, and said her name was Beloved. Beloved is a young woman, mysterious, silent, demanding, with flawless skin and 3 small scars on her forehead. Setha, Paul D., and Denver brought her into the house. The girl drank a huge amount of water and fell asleep on baby Suggs' bed. She slept for 4 days, and Denver devotedly cared for her, hiding her incontinence from her mother. Gradually, Beloved recovered, but remained in the house. She behaved like a child, was obsessed with sweets, and remembered almost nothing about her past, except that she lived on a bridge. Her arrival disrupted the fragile balance that had been established with Paul D.'s arrival. Beloved showed a strange, almost possessive attachment to Setha. She followed her constantly and listened eagerly to her stories about the past. Under the influence of these questions, Setha began to remember what she had long tried to bury in her memory: the story of the crystal earrings given by Mrs. Garner and the tragic fate of her mother, whom she barely knew. Her mother showed her a brand under her breast, a cross in a circle, so that her daughter could identify her if something happened to her. Soon, Setha's mother was hanged. Beloved's presence increasingly oppressed Paul D. He felt an invisible force pushing him out of the house. First, he couldn't sleep in the same bed with Setha, and moved to the armchair, then to baby Suggs' room, then to the pantry, and finally to the cold shed. One night, Beloved came to him in the shed and seduced him. This connection became humiliating and agonizing for him, forcing him to relive the most terrible moments of his past, which he kept in a tobacco tin in his chest. One winter day, Setha, Denver, and Beloved went skating. This day, full of laughter and falls, was a moment of pure happiness and unity for them. In the evening, sitting by the stove, Beloved began to hum a song that Setha had composed for her children, and that no one but them could know. At that moment, Setha realized that Beloved was her murdered daughter, returned to her in the flesh. This discovery filled her soul with a complex mixture of joy and horror, and she accepted Beloved as her redemption. Stamp, an old family friend, worried about Paul D. and his relationship with Setha. Stamp is an elderly black man, a former slave, a secret agent, a conductor, a moral authority, wise, with a red ribbon. He decided that Paul D. should know the truth about Setha's past and showed him a newspaper clipping 18 years old. It told how Setha, in order to save her children from returning to slavery, tried to kill them in the woodshed. She managed to kill her eldest daughter before she was stopped. Paul D., shocked to the core, went to Setha for an explanation. She confirmed everything, insisting that it was an act of ultimate love, saving her children from a fate worse than death. Paul D. could not accept her truth. He said, "Your love is too heavy," he said, and thought, "That witch is looking at me now, sitting right above me on the second floor and looking at me through the floor." "Too heavy?" Setha asked. He called her act animalistic and left, leaving Setha alone. After Paul D. left, Setha devoted herself entirely to Beloved. She quit her job and spent all her days playing with her, trying to atone for her guilt. Their relationship turned into a destructive struggle. Beloved became increasingly demanding and capricious, accusing Setha of abandoning her. She grew and became fatter, literally sucking the life force out of her mother, who was visibly wasting away. Denver watched in horror, realizing that her mother was on the verge of death. Gathering all her willpower, she left the yard of 124 for the first time in many years to find work and ask the community for help. The community responded to Denver's plea. 30 black women, led by Ella, came to 124 to exorcise the spirit. Their singing, full of power and sorrow, drew Setha and Beloved to the porch. At that moment, Mr. Bodwin, their white benefactor, drove up to the house. Setha, in a fit of madness, mistook him for the schoolteacher who had returned for her children and lunged at him with an ice pick. The women and Denver stopped her. In the ensuing chaos, Beloved disappeared forever, leaving behind only emptiness and legends. Paul D., learning of what happened, returned to Setha. He found her broken and devastated, lying in baby Sung's bed. He began to care for her, bathing her, and telling her that she herself was her greatest treasure. Their shared past and common pain gave them hope for the future. The story of Beloved was eventually forgotten, turning into a vague memory, a story not to pass on. I am beloved, and she is mine. I see her picking flowers, snapping off the leaves at the stems, placing them in a round basket. The leaves are no use to her. She fills the basket to the brim, parting the grass.